when it comes to picking romantic partners, whether we are in close relationship with our father, we have a somewhat good relationship with our father, or we have a bad relationship with our father, as girls, we sometimes tend to attract men that are just like our father. We purposely go out as women when we have these missing relationships with our dad and find somebody that resembles our father, but subconsciously that's what we're attracted to because that's the part of us that's actually missing, and we're trying to fill that void unconsciously. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Woman of Worth podcast. I am your host, Tanisha Burks. This week and next week, we are going to talk about the daddy and mommy hole. Clinically, they're known as the mother and the father wound. So let's jump right into it. We're going to talk about the daddy hole today. This concept means that our early childhood experiences with our male primary caregiver can shape an individual's attachment style and self esteem and romantic choices later in life. How many of us know that when it comes to picking romantic partners, whether we are in close relationship with our father, we have a somewhat good relationship with our father, or we have a bad relationship with our father, as girls, we sometimes tend to attract men that are just like our father. I'll be first to share that my father is a drinker, okay? And I know for me personally, I do not like a man that drinks. But guess what? I attracted every single time. I attracted a man that drinks. Okay. I typically, I'll call my dad, but I like to catch him before he's had his morning coffee with a little bit of adult cream in it, if you get what I'm saying. So I like to kind of get to him before that because typically when you talk to someone that's been drinking, they kind of drive the conversation and the conversation's all over the place. So I remember I was talking to this one guy, and he grinded my entire soul. My entire existence for living was grinded because all he wanted to do was conduct the whole conversation. And I remember at one point of the conversation, he said something to me, and I told him, "Oh, you remind me so much of my dad," and he laughed. And I think I talked to him a few more times after that, and then I let that go. One person like my father is enough. Okay, don't take that as any shade, but I'm saying I already have a daddy. Okay, I don't need two. So I let that go because it was a no for me. But let me tell y'all something. This is something that I was able to spot after I went through healing. A lot of times before, when I was healing, I would date people that resembled parts of my father that I didn't really care for. But I hope that doesn't come off bad. But I didn't notice it. I really had no idea and no clue that that's what I was doing. So I'm not saying that we purposely go out as women when we have these missing relationships with our dad and find somebody that resembles our father, but subconsciously that's what we're attracted to because that's the part of us that's actually missing, and we're trying to fill that void unconsciously. And so we're attracting people that are just like our father, whether you have a good relationship with them, whether you knew them, whether or not, your relationship is with them. That's typically what we do, right? So these are the trust and intimacy struggles that we typically have when we have a father complex or a daddy wound or the daddy hole. It's difficulty trusting partners or becoming too attached to the wrong partner. That was my thing. I was so attached to the wrong people because I just wanted that love from a man, okay? And let me just say this, that we as a people need to be mindful of the people that God has placed in our lives, not to replace our father, our mother, whatever hole that we're trying to fill, but we have to be mindful of the people that God has placed in our life that are there, that are going to represent his love towards us as a father. For me, I overlooked the fact that I had a wonderful godfather from the age of 12 up until now who I could call at any time and say, hey, God, dad, I call him dad. I say, hey, dad, my tire is flat. He'll come and he'll change my tire. Uh, my car is running funny. He'll go to the store and buy me stuff to put in my car to make my car run right. Like, I really overlooked for years the fact that God had placed someone in my life that would resemble a father's love for me. And instead of embracing that, I overlooked it and felt like I was still missing a father's love and a man's touch when God had really centered me around men who really loved me. I had a favorite uncle that passed away in November of 2017 that was like a father to me. So don't take for granted the people in your life that God has placed around you to help mend that missing part of you. If you embrace that, I really believe that if I would have embraced the good men that God had placed around me, not saying that my father was a horrible father, but he had other demons that, were troubling him. But if I had embraced these men that God had brought around me, I am pretty sure that I would have made better decisions when it came to dating and the type of men that I dated. But because I was hurting and because I really couldn't see that and my mind was trained to only see the negative, I went down that rabbit hole of choosing the wrong type of people, not trusting people at all, but trusting people that I felt that I could change. I don't know what makes us think that we could change anybody when the only person that has the authority and the power to change someone is that person and God. And the thing about God is he's not going to force change on me. He gives us the options and the privilege of choice. So when it comes to a person changing, it is that person's privilege and their own choice to change. God does not force change upon us. So neither can you, woman, change a man who clearly has stated to you that he wants to be your friend and he's not looking for a relationship and the only thing that he wants from you is to sleep with you. You can't change that man any more than he can change his own sex, okay? That has to be something, obviously, at that time and probably period, you just aren't what he wants. And you're probably not going to be what he wants, and that's okay because he's probably resembling something that's missing from your life that you're chasing. You get what I'm saying? So when we have these trust and intimacy struggles, it's due to early neglect or the inconsistent love. Sometimes your father could very well be present in the house. I'm not saying that every woman grew up without a dad. Sometimes the men could be very present in the house, but they're not present there mentally. So that could still cause a woman to go and look for love. So then another thing that happens from the daddy hole that you can see is a fear of abandonment. This is anxiety about being left, leading to clinginess or ending relationships through self sabotage. It's the too good to be true because the different and the better, it feels unusual, right? So you have anxiety and you don't want a person to leave you. So we have a tendency to hold on to the wrong type of person, even if we know it's bad for us, even if we know we're being gaslit, because we don't want to be by ourselves. We don't want to feel abandoned. We don't want that person to leave. Or what we'll do is we'll do the opposite and we'll self sabotage that thing. Now, for me, I was the type of person that I never wanted to be dumped. I never wanted the man to make the decision that he wanted to leave me. So I would always make the decision to leave the relationship. It was a fear of abandonment, so I'm going to abandon you. But then the flip side of that is when you finally meet someone that's good for you, it feels different. Okay? Peace feels different when you're used to chaos. And you find that people that are used to chaos, when they get some peace in their life, they got to go create some type of trouble. That happens in relationships too. When you're with someone who checks all of your boxes, that is just there. They're present for you mentally. They're emotionally stable. They let you know how they feel about you up front. You don't have to guess. When you meet that person, it can feel so weird. It just feels like you in this bubble and you just waiting for the bubble to pop. So instead of waiting for the bubble to pop on its own, what you're going to do is you're going to pop that bubble yourself, because you want to make sure that when this bubble pops, I am having a safe landing and nothing is catching me off guard. So what you tend to do is you self-sabotage, because it feels foreign. And also you have that fear of abandonment. You don't want to get too attached because you're scared that that person is going to leave you right when you let your guard down. So your guard is always up. Can I suggest to you, ladies, that when something like that comes along in your life and it feels totally different from what you're used to, and you know that you know in your mind and you have discerned that this is true and it's not a narcissist just pretending, but this is real, true feelings of attraction and like, what I need you to do is I need you to pause, stop, breathe, and just go with the flow. Release your control, because that's what we tend to have when we have that fear of abandonment. We like to control things. Release that control and just let it flow. One thing that we know when we've been through traumatic relationships and when we have experienced trauma, one thing we know is what hurt us doesn't kill us. It makes us stronger. So if in the event that you do end up getting hurt, at least you tried. At least you stepped out. At least for a second, you did something different. But at the end of the day, even when it hurts, one thing you know is you will be all right. You will live. You will get through it. And your heart is open and you can love again. All right. So then another thing that we do when we have a daddy hole is we seek validation. We do this by a strong, constant need for approval, most likely from older men, to fill the void left by the absent or emotionally distant father. This was me 1,010%. Let me tell you, I was 19 and my daughter's father was 34. All right. I have this thing for older men. Okay. And to me, I didn't know what that was. I just thought, older men were more mature. That's what we tell ourselves. Right. But what it was I was missing that older man in my life. I felt that should have been in my life. I wasn't embracing, again, the people that God had placed in my life. Okay. So I was overlooking all of that and looking outside of myself for what I already had. Let me just say something, because I don't want anybody to think that my dad is a horrible father. I am a daddy's girl, 10 toes down, still to this day. I don't care what mistakes he made in his past when I was a child. I'm an adult now. I know my father did the best that he could with what he had, with all the stuff that he had going on. So it's not that I didn't know my father. I did. I knew my dad. I saw him at holidays. I didn't grow up in the house with him. Uh, he would come, he would see us, and it's that's just the life you have when you have a single mother. Okay, so my dad did the best he could with the tools that he had within himself, and I respect him for what he did do. At least I know my dad. You know what I'm saying? I can point my dad out on the street if I see him. If I'm driving past, hey, there goes my dad. It's not that I'm walking around on this earth and I know anything about who my dad is. So my dad was present. He just wasn't in the house. Let me say that. And sometimes for little girls, we just want our dads in the house. We don't want our dads in a whole nother state. And we left here. I'm glad that my dad stayed here in the same state as me and not traveled across the state lines somewhere else. And he wasn't reachable and accessible for me, and I had to take a flight to get to him. All I have to do is drive to get to my dad. And for girls, for kids, even if you are moving to a different state, it's still a sense of abandonment for us. And I don't want to put dads down that actually do leave to do better and to be better for their kids. But you have to understand that that child still feels a sense of abandonment that they really can't explain. They don't understand. They don't know what they're feeling. So then here's the relationship patterns. We're unconsciously attracted to emotionally unavailable narcissistic partners. Y'all, that is so deep. These partners often exhibit the same absent tendencies in different ways. Okay. So they're there, but they still have absent tendencies. It may be, they may not be absent physically, but emotionally, spiritually. And let me just tell you all that cheating is also abandonment. You abandoned my trust to go and cheat on me. These open relationships, abandonment. It's what I feel like women, when they agree to these open relationships, I feel like those are women who are, again, self-sabotaging. They're saying, well, I'm not worth being in a committed relationship with, so I'm going to trick myself into thinking that I'm okay with him sleeping with other women. That's still abandonment. He still has abandoned you. He's still absent because he's with someone else. He's not committed to you. You know what can happen in that open relationship? He could actually meet the person that he's supposed to be with. And what is he going to do? He's going to abandon you. Put some boundaries around that relationship. Have enough respect for yourself to set some not open boundaries, but to set some closed boundaries, okay? Open relationships, they are never going to work. When you invite someone into the bedroom, you're not just inviting one person in. You're inviting every person, every woman that he sees that he wants to be with. If there's women who date porn stars and they think that that's just the most amazing thing. Like, he's a porn star and he's off and he's sleeping up with all these other women and he's coming to home to me and he's going to stop one day. You know what's going to happen? He may stop recording, but he's still going to cheat on you because now he has this appetite for other women, and you are not going to satisfy that because you let this man do porn and strip and whatever, and you accepted that. So in his body's mind, it's going to be hard to turn that off without some type of therapeutic help to turn off that sexual appetite for other women, because that's what he's used to. If you know that's not the type of relationship you want, and when you know your worth, you know that's not the type of relationship that you deserve, I'm going to tell you this, it's going to be easier to walk away. This is why I said in so many, I think I said in every episode, this is why it's so important to close the gap of your legs and keep your heart and your mind open. Keep your mind sharper than your heart, because the heart is deceitfully wicked and it will lead you the wrong way. But that mind is never going to lead you wrong. It's never going to steer you wrong. That discernment is never going to steer you wrong. You think discernment steered you wrong, but it didn't. You ignored the discernment. So what steered you wrong was your own lust and your own appetite, and you chased it. I believe it's a scripture in the Bible that talks about that. We're enticed by our own lusts, and that's what we chase. We overlook the signs and the warnings that God has given us because we want what we want, and we don't have the patience to wait for what God has created for us. A healthy relationship with dad is linked to higher self-esteem, improved emotional regulation, and better choices in romantic relationships. So that's why it's important, I say, that if you had a strained relationship with your dad as a child, it's important when you become an adult that you try to somehow rectify that relationship so that you don't continue to have broken relationships with men. It was important for me to forgive my father. And that happened with me acknowledging that I was upset with him, that I had an ought with him. That even though I consider myself a daddy's girl all my life and love my dad to the fullest all my life, in spite of whatever happened as a child, there were parts of me that resented him and that was upset with him. And I had to acknowledge that. And finally, because my dad used to apologize to me all the time, finally, I said to him one day, once I realized that I did harbor some resentment and unforgiveness in my heart for him, and through therapy, I worked through that. And finally, I said, Dad, I forgive you. And he has never apologized again because he knows she forgives me. So that was something that I had to work out within myself. And now I can have better insight on the people that I'm dating. And I can do like my pastor told me a long time ago. I told y'all my first pastor told me years ago, you're a pretty girl, go to school, get your education, you can line the men up on the wall, and you can pick out whichever one you want. And that's what I'm doing. Y'all on the wall, and I'm picking out whichever one I want. And I'm having fun doing it. Okay. So oftentimes when a father has been absent, we tell ourselves we don't want to date someone that's like our father. But then, like I said in the beginning, we do subconsciously attract those exact type of men. It's not on purpose, but when you're not healed, that's what you attract and you don't know it. When you are healed, you're probably still going to attract that, but then you're going to be wise enough to spot it and say, okay, that's the part of my dad that I'm attracting that at the time I did not forgive. I want to attract this new part of my dad, this new relationship that I have with my dad where I've forgiven him and we have that better relationship. That's the dad that's showing up today. That's the dad I want to attract. Okay, not the dad I want to attract, but y'all get what I'm saying. That's the type of man I want to attract. I don't want to attract that person that's like the person that I held some resentment towards, because then you're going to resent that man in the relationship. It's not going to work because deep down you really do resent that person, but it's familiar. So that's what you go for. So you want to go for what's unfamiliar in that relationship that you have with your father now. Okay. The good part that's unfamiliar, that seems too good to be true. That's what you want to attract. Okay. And you'll be able to know the difference. Okay. So the father role is always seen as protection and support. We often search for protection and support in our relationships. And it's funny, when we're not healed and when we have this father wound, we will often be drawn to the men who provide neither. They can't provide us protection. They can't provide us any support financially or mentally or emotionally, and they couldn't care less about us. And that's because we haven't done the work. Remember, our relationship with our parents are like our blueprint and guide for our relationships outside of that. Like our dad is our first encounter with the man. Our moms are our first encounter with women. Okay, so as women, the relationship that we have with our mother, it shapes how we're going to treat and see other women. Okay, and then our relationships with our dad, they shape how we're going to treat and see other men. And also, those relationships also trickle down onto how you see your sons and how you see your daughters. Okay, so I'll be with you next week. And then after that, we'll have the mid-season finale. But until then, you guys be blessed and have a wonderful rest of your day. God bless you. Bye-bye.